Hello everyone, welcome to Lukmaan IAS. Today we are going to have the Hindu analysis of 23rd January 2022. Let's see which are the important articles from today's The Hindu newspaper. Okay, so as this is a Sunday's newspaper, you can see two important, let's say, pages relevant to our examination: FAQ page, page number 11, and Science and Technology. But largely the input we can take today from FAQ page, page number 11. Let's take briefly the overview of all these articles, and then we'll discuss them in detail. First one is suspension of MLAs up for judicial review. Now this is important from GS2 Polity paper. The context of this article is that Supreme Court is listening to or hearing the case related to suspension of 12 MLAs by Maharashtra State Assembly in July 2021 month. Okay, so whether such kind of suspension for 1 year, that is beyond 60 days, which is stipulated in our constitution, whether it can happen. So all these arguments, and simply we can say Supreme Court is going to hear the arguments and give the verdict about that. Okay, so it is relevant to polity part, GS2 paper. Then the second article, controlled flight into terrain, CFIT. So try service inquiry into the helicopter crash wherein the death of we can say CDS Bipin Rawat happened. So the inquiry report, preliminary inquiry report suggests that the controlled flight into terrain, that accident that has happened, so this is the reason. Okay, so let's understand here from, we can say that science and technology perspective, this particular article, not economy, science and technology perspective, what has happened there, as well as simply we should understand the civil aviation aspect, the safety aspect. Okay, so the infrastructure in GS3 paper, infrastructure part is there in syllabus, civil aviation specifically mentioned. So from that aspect also, but largely science, what kind of, let's say, meaning here, controlled flight into terrain, aviation safety aspect is there. Then third, why is 5G rollout a problem near US airports? So last week we have seen how the problem happened near some of the US airports because of launch of this 5G technology in the nearby areas, and many flights were cancelled, including Air India flights from India. Okay, so let's understand this issue, what has happened there from science and technology perspective. 5G technology and its rollout, it has been in news in last 2-3 years, so that's why it is important. Then from specifically prelims examination on Sunday magazine supplement is there on the Hindu newspaper. So there the literary review from art and culture perspective, it is important, just glance through it. So we have found about this Silapadikaran as the epic, Tamil epic from Sangam era. So Sangam literature is important from mains and prelims both perspective. Which are these important Tamil epics, we will try to find out here. Then Kerala Bird Atlas. So one of such first state bird atlas on the scientific lines have been given here, Kerala Bird Atlas. So it is important from environment section prelims examination. Then what is beating retreat from miscellaneous aspect? So Republic Day parade celebrations, Republic Day celebrations are going on, and it is in news because of, let's say, many inclusion exclusion of practices, some deviation from the conventions is being done. So beating retreat, what is that? During the Republic Day parade, we will try to find out the basics of this phenomenon. And finally, practice prelims MCQs. First one is suspension of MLAs up for judicial review. Let's understand. First, let me give you context here that last July 2021, Maharashtra Assembly suspended 12 BJP MLAs for, let's say, their behavior on the floor of the house, and this is a kind of, let's say, disciplinary action by the state assembly. Okay, and these 12 BJP legislators are suspended for 1 year. They are not allowed to enter the assembly for 1 year. Okay, there are many issues, constitutional, legal issues involved here, and now the Supreme Court is hearing about this case, and there are some questions raised by the Supreme Court. First is, it is the question of rationality of suspending members beyond the ongoing session. Okay, so if up till now whatever the MPs, MLAs have been, let's say, suspended by the presiding officers, they are for the particular session period and not beyond that largely. Okay, so disciplinary action is fine, but 1 year, so you can understand that the constituency from which that MLA is representing, so that MLA is not going to be on the floor of the house for 1 year. That means that constituency remains unrepresented for 1 year in the legislative house. Okay, this is the, we can say, questioning rationality of suspension for a long time. Also, the bench cited Article 194 of the Constitution, which talks about, let's say, vacancy of a particular state, let's say a particular seat, when the legislator remains absent for beyond 60 days without permission. Okay, so the legislative assembly can take decision and we can say that expel that person from the position or seat. This is Article 190. Now beyond this 60 days, whether there can be disciplinary action. Okay, like this case 1 year is mentioned. This is the question raised. Also, Representation of People Act says that any vacancy in house to be filled up through by election within 6 months of its occurrence. Okay, so that means it is mentioned in our constitution and the laws, RPA Act, that beyond 6 months there should not be vacancy of that representation of the constituency. So that means this is very important aspect of democracy. Okay, so this is also questioned here. Now, suspension seems to have worse consequences than outright, we can say, expulsion from the legislation. Why? Outright expulsion will result into this election within 6 months. That means the constituency will be represented immediately after 6 months, maximum time period. There will be by-election, new person will be elected. But what happens during this suspension for 1 year? The person is already there, elected, but he is not representing on the floor. So he is not representing the concerns, views of the people on the floor. This is major. Okay, so worse consequences. Also, unlimited power of suspension can be misused to alter the composition of the house in which government has only a slender majority. Okay, so basically here the composition of the house can be changed, altered in its own to its own advantage by the government, having very, let's say, thin margin of, let's say, majority here. And this is what observed in the Maharashtra case also to some extent. Okay, so such kind of misuse of power can happen. That's why the Supreme Court may review this position. Now, what are the arguments by the State Government Council in that particular case? The argument is that, first one, the state legislature is having the absolute power to make or take decision on that particular. It is provided in the constitution itself that the state legislature can take disciplinary action. Now this power belongs to state legislature. Now once it is recognized that state legislature can take the action, how this can take that? How to take action? It should be decided by the state legislature. And what should be the disciplinary action is also decided by the state legislation. Also, the other argument is that if it can expel the MLA, then suspension is lesser punishment, and it can surely do that. These are the arguments, but let's see what Supreme Court is hear out the other arguments also, and it has set aside the let's say the judgment day later, but simply we should understand the concerns, the arguments or the questions raised by the Supreme Court in this particular case. Okay, so this is very important from GS to paper polity part. Also those who are having the public administration optional subject, for them also it is important. Now, what can cause an aircraft to fly into terrain? Okay, so the preliminary inquiry, tri-service preliminary inquiry into we can say this Mi-17 V5 helicopter crash, which resulted into death of CDS General Bipin Rawat. Okay, so what is controlled flight into terrain? Controlled flight into terrain. This is technical term which is used here. This controlled flight into terrain is simply, we can say that there is no loss of control by pilot. There is no loss of control by pilot, and such kind of instances happens. We can say that there is no manual error involved here, simply in layman language. Okay, and such kind of instances can happen because of reasons like sudden environmental changes or conditions, weather conditions may happen. Also we can say that simply the other reasons you can mention here, the loss of, or we can say due to not following standards or standard guidelines by crew. Okay, so because of that also such kind of things may happen, accidents may happen, and this is resulting into second largest fatalities. The largest fatalities or accident happen because of failure of equipment or the hardware aspect or software aspect, but this is the second most say fatal accidents are happening according to the record. Now what exactly happened in the case of General Rawat's flight? Now here what has happened is, first thing is, let's say sudden changes in the weather. Okay, sudden changes in the weather has happened, and there was simply we should understand the spatial disorientation. This is also a technical word, but you should know about this, of pilot. Spatial disorientation of pilot means pilot was not able to judge height or altitude, latitude, speed of the aircraft. This is spatial disorientation, and because of that this we can say accident has happened specifically. Now how often do CFIT accident occur? So I was telling you that this is the second largest reason for the accidents for the helicopters and aircrafts. How can such incidents can be avoided, accidents can be avoided? First thing is that use of technology. Okay, so use of technology, like we can say terrain warning system. So such kind of warning system, when they are installed, they can give the correct picture or warning when the aircraft or helicopter is moving near to the terrain or water or any kind of structure. Okay, so that will help the pilots to immediately steer around that particular terrain or a nearby region. Then second thing is that training. More rigorous training is required, and the simulations, they should be used here for training purpose. This is also important aspect, and use of technology is very important aspect. Both can be used so as to reduce such kind of accidents. Okay, fine. Now moving on, why is 5G rollout a problem near US airports? Let's understand what is the problem there. Yes, the rollout of 5G C-band spectrum. Some technical aspects are there, but you should remember 3.7 gigahertz, 3.98 gigahertz. This is the range of 5G C-band spectrum, which was installed in the US or used in the US on 19th January. After the pushback since December 2021, the original rollout date. This has led to several major airlines including Air India temporarily cancelling their flights to US over fears of spectrum interference with crucial aircraft navigation system. An aircraft type largely affected in this was Boeing 777. Okay, so the spectrum interference, what is that spectrum interference happening there? An aviation expert explains this. The main worry is radio emissions at the top of C-band's 3.98 gigahertz frequency bleeding over into 4.2 gigahertz to 4.4 gigahertz band used by the civil aircraft radio altimeters. Because of this, it is being considered there are chances of spectrum interference between the 5G technology being used in the nearby region and the kind of frequency used by the civil aviation system or aircrafts. Okay, so this may result into miscommunication and result into fatal accidents there. Okay, so that's why such cancellations had happened. And two major telecom firms concerned, Verizon and AT&T, also took cognizance of appeals by the Federal Aviation Administration and the airlines about their worries, leading to US President put out a statement on 18th January that there will be postponement of this particular installation. Along with that, the buffer zones around US airport will be designed to try and keep 5G signals and aircrafts separate. This is going to be implemented there. You should understand that the frequencies for 5G and the airlines that may match and result into interference, and that's why throughout the world, like European countries like France and other countries, they have used different frequencies, different kind of, let's say, power levels for use of that. And along with that, the antenna orientation near the, we can say, air traffic control, simply because of, let's say, changes in that, they are able to implement this 5G technology there. Only why the concern in US? Because this was not implemented in US. Okay, so you should be aware about this issue. 5G technology is in very much news because the trials in India still it is going on, and 5G technology is being implemented in some of the cities, and this is going to be problem in future for India also. The same kind of problem may happen. Okay, so what we will do about that, surely our regulatory agencies will look into this issue. Now for prelims examination, Silappadi-karam, this Sangam literature, the art, we can say that simply epic, written in the post Sangam period. Okay, specifically this Silappadi-karam is written by Ilango Adigal, a Jain monk. Okay, now this is one of the 5 Tamil epics known as Panja Kaviyangal, written by non-Vedic poets. Now this particular epic is both drama or play and epic also. Okay, so this Silappadi-karam means the story of anklet. Basically the story revolves around this anklet, the Silambu being the anklet worn by young unmarried Tamil girls in ancient times. Okay, so there is story, the king and queen and everything is involved there, drama, tragedy, comedy, everything is involved there in that epic. Okay, so simply we should understand about the music also. Different classical and folk forms of music, theatre found in three regions of South India, Cholas, Pandyas and Cheras. During ancient time period, these three kingdoms ruled the southern Indian states at present, those states. Okay, and are beautifully documented in this three-dimensional epic. What are the names of other important Tamil literature, let's say books or epics? Tolkappiyam, the most important, written by Tolkappiyar, is related to grammar, and it is only surviving literary work from the second Sangam. Okay, so first Sangam that has happened, there is no trace of any literature from the first Sangam. From the second Sangam, there has been, let's say, the only Tolkappiyam is found, and other remaining from the third Sangam are there, and post Sangam period. Sangam is nothing but simply the meeting, or we can say the conference of poets in that region. So that is Sangam. Okay, so such three Sangams were we can say sponsored by the kings of these three kingdoms, Chola, Pandyas and Cheras. Now, the next is Ituthokalai or Itutokai, 8 anthologies comprises of 8 works. Then Patu Pattu, 10 such different literary works are mentioned there. Then Mani Megalai is an epic written by Chittalai Chatanar. So this Mani Megalai and this Silapatikaram, they are main epics of Tamil, we can say literature in that region. Okay, so they are all written in Tamil language, and they are around 2000 years back, the ancient time period. Okay, so remember this for both prelims and mains examination. Kerala gets its first ever scientific bird atlas, first of its kind by any state. Okay, so this was conducted as a citizen science driven exercise with participation of more than 1000 volunteers of bird watching community. It was found that species count was higher during the dry season than the wet season, while species richness and evenness were higher in the northern and central districts than the southern districts. Okay, most of the endemics were concentrated in Western Ghats, while threatened species were mostly along the coast. This is the outcome. Okay. This can be asked in prelims examination, like which of the following state had recent its own updated on scientific lines the bird atlas. So it is Kerala. Now Mahatma's favorite hymn out of beating retreat list. Okay, Abide With Me. This has been played since independence from 1950. Okay, so this is not going to be this year's list of tunes. Beating retreat ceremony. Okay. Now what are the 3 tunes to be played this year by masked bands this year in that beating retreat? Kadam Kadam Badhaye Ja, second is Drummer's Call and Ae Mere Watan Ke Logo. These 3 songs will be played. About beating retreat, it is a centuries old military tradition going back to the days when troops disengaged from battle at sunset. As soon as the burglars sounded the retreat, troops ceased fighting and withdrew from battlefield. We know this is also even during the let's say Mahabharata, when it was fought between Kaurava and Pandava. So in the evening time there will be burglars, the sound, and then after that it will stop. Okay. So whatever the fight, it stops for the next day sunrise. Then beating retreat is performed every year on the evening of 29th January at Vijay Chowk in national capital. It marks the end of Republic Day celebrations. Okay, so trivial information may not be asked in prelims examination, but yes, unpredictability has increased in prelims examination. if they can ask such trivial sports awards and this factual information, this can be also asked in the examination. Okay. Now what should be answer to this question? Yes, select the odd one out from the following ancient Indian literature. Okay, so just now we talked about Sangam literature. Silapadikaram was there, Tolkappiyam was there, then Itutokai was also there, right? But Natya Shastra, now this is let's say Sanskrit. It is also, we can say, ancient times, but it is written in Sanskrit by Bharat Muni. Okay, but it is in Sanskrit and other are in Tamil. This is actually distinguishing factor. Okay, they are in Tamil and this Natya Shastra is in Sanskrit. Many of the, let's say, music styles and drama and classical dance from the northern India, they derive their source from this Natya Shastra. Okay. So you should be aware about that from art and culture perspective. Fine? Okay. So these are the important articles from today's The Hindu newspaper. Thank you.